For the opportunity to speak tonight. As I was thinking about preaching, I had a sense that I was going to get asked probably a month or so ago. I just had a feeling it was coming. So I have already been thinking about this, and I thought I'd preach out of a book that we really haven't heard a lot from this year. So open your Bibles to 1 Samuel. And no, I really enjoyed the book of Samuel that Pastor went through, and one of the things that I decided to do when I got my new job, and I was going to be driving to work alone instead of driving with Brother Kurt every day, was just listen to the Bible. And so I went through the whole New Testament, just listening to it as I was driving, and then Pastor started preaching out of Samuel, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to read ahead, like kind of as he's going through it, go through it with him, and then I read it again, and then I read it again with 1st and 2nd Kings, and then when I was asked to preach, I went through it again. So I'm halfway through 2 Samuel for my 4th time. And I've really enjoyed it, but I think it's funny that both Jacob and Michael both mentioned David. We must just have him on our mind. So when we talk about David, the most common thing I think of is a man after God's own heart. That's what we all think of when we think of David, at least I do, is he was a man after God's own heart. And I was thinking to myself, is that even something that's attainable, something that's even possible? How can you be a man after God's own heart? And David did some incredible things. But as I was reading through the Samuels and Kings, it's really not that difficult. And we just have to be willing to do it. So 1 Samuel 17:37 is where we're going to start. My first thing that I noticed of what made David special and a man after God's own heart was he had a relationship with God. And that didn't start when he got anointed as king, which in 1 Samuel it doesn't talk a lot about David before he was anointed king. It pretty much comes in and they call David and they anoint him king. But in 1 Samuel 17:37, where of course David is talking to King Saul about going and defeating Goliath, and he kind of hints at where he was at as far as his relationship with God. And it says, David said, "Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with thee." David already knew the Lord. He was trusting in him when the lion came at him. He was trusting when the bear came at him. He already knew the Lord, and he knew the power of the Lord, and he had a relationship. I'm assuming, reading in between the lines, that he had a pretty good relationship with the Lord. Otherwise, I don't think the Lord would have anointed him king over Israel. So that was the first thing, is he had a relationship with the Lord. And the second thing, number 2, David had respect for the Lord's leaders in his life. 1 Samuel 24. 1 Samuel 24. Verses 5 through 6. And this is David's running from Saul because Saul's trying to kill him. And he gets 2 opportunities to take Saul's life. And 1 Samuel 24:5 says, "And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt." Now this is David snuck up on Saul while he was asleep, and the Lord put a deep sleep on Saul. And all David did was just cut part of his garment and took it back with him. And he said I got to read it word for word because I don't want to say it wrong. David's heart smote him. It was that feeling, that gut-wrenching feeling that he had done something wrong. And he said to his men, "The Lord forbid me that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is anointed of the Lord." And then, if you flip over to chapter 26, just a page or 2, to verse 11 of chapter 26, it says, "The Lord forbid," this was after David, again, had an opportunity to take Saul's life, it said, "The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is at his bolster and the cruse of water, and let us go." Talking to his right-hand man that was with him, that was kind of urging him to, hey, the Lord gave you another opportunity. Why don't we, take care of business right now? And David had enough respect for the leaders that God had put in control that he, even though maybe he would have been in the right, Saul's chasing him, trying to kill him, he still had enough respect for the Lord's anointed that he wasn't going to do that. So that's the first two. He had a relationship with God. He had respect for those in authority over him. Number 3, David inquired of the Lord. David inquired of the Lord. There's 9 different spots in 1 and 2 Samuel. I'll flip to just a couple. Let's go to 1 Samuel 23. We'll start there. 1 Samuel 23. Verse 1 through 5. And I'll start reading if you're not there. Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob... I should have read beforehand because I knew there was going to be words in here. That word. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go and smite the Philistines? Asking the Lord for direction in this situation. And the Lord said unto David, Go and smite the Philistines, and save Keilah. And David's men said unto him, Behold, we be afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we could come to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord yet again, and the Lord answered him and said, Arise and go to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into thine hand. So here, and there's nine other verses. If you want the references, I'll spit them out real quick. So that was the first one. Then in that same chapter, verse 10 through 14, 1 Samuel 30, verse 8 and 9, 2 Samuel 2, verse 1, 2 Samuel 5, 17 through 21, 2 Samuel 5, 22 through 25, and then 2 Samuel 21, 1. 9 different times where he inquired of the Lord direction. And when you have going back to point 1, when you have a good relationship with the Lord, there are times that you need to inquire of him, and there are times when you don't. When David went to fight Goliath, Goliath was cursing the nation of Israel and the God of Israel. And it doesn't say any time in there where David said, God, should I go take care of this? He knew that a man coming against the nation of Israel and cursing the God, the one true God of Israel, he knew that was wrong. When I'm raising Briella and Jason, there are certain things that they know they don't need to ask. My daughter, when we put up the Christmas tree, my wife made sure to tell her, like, this is a no-no. And she'd walk up to the tree and she'd go to touch it and she'd go, And what David did to Goliath is he said, He knew that God didn't want him cursing the nation of Israel and cursing God. So he went and he took care of business, and he had confidence that the Lord was going to take care of business because that was a But on some other things, going to fight the Philistines, David didn't know. So David inquired 9 different times. There were things that came up in his life that he wasn't sure. And there are times in my life, especially over the past year with raising the kids and a new job, and there were times where I knew what was right and what was wrong, and I knew the Lord would be happy or wouldn't be happy with what was going on. But then there were some times where it's, Lord, tell me, what am I going to do? What am I supposed to go this way? Am I supposed to go that way? David inquired of the Lord. After he inquired of the Lord, he followed the Lord's leading and did exactly what he was told, without question. And sometimes we inquire of the Lord, and then sometimes we'll make a decision, and I'm guilty of it. We'll make the decision and really not wait for an answer. Or we get an answer and we don't like it. And it's a big deal. Let's see how big of a deal it was. Let's go to 1 Samuel 15:10. Is it a big deal to do exactly what the Lord wants when you ask? 1 Samuel 15, verse 10. This is referring back to Saul. Saul had gotten direction from the Lord to go take care of the Amalekites. And after he didn't, said, Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king. For he is turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments. And it grieveth Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. That was at the point that God had said, Saul, He's still king, but he was disgusted that Saul had done what he had done. And very shortly after, he chose David as the new anointed king of Israel. So it's a big deal when you ask the Lord, or when the Lord tells you to do something and go a direction, or to say something or spread the gospel, and you don't. It is a big deal because the Lord commanded it. And we need to do exactly what the Lord commands. Lastly, the Lord blessed many generations because of David. And this is something I didn't see until I started reading through Kings. A lot of different times in 1st and 2nd Kings, as there were new kings coming into Israel, they went away from the Lord, and then they'd come back, and then they'd go away, and they'd come back. And all throughout that time, the Lord, many times, while being set aside, the Lord said, I will bless because of my servant David. And let's look at a couple of those. 1 Kings 11:36 is the first one. 1 Kings 11:36. Actually, let's start in 11:32, and we'll just read down a few verses. It says, But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake. This is the Lord saving one city for David, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, because that they have forsaken me, and have worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moabites, and Milcom, the god of children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways, to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David my servant's sake, whom I choose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand, and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes, and unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant might have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. Let's look. Another one, 1 Kings 15:5, and this one has a little twist in it, which I like. 15:5. Because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, save only the matter of Uriah the Hittite. That one time, God made sure he put it in there. Save that, David did as I had commanded. And I thought that was interesting that he would include that. And there's many others. I'm not going to get into the rest of them. But out of these 4 things, a relationship with God, David had respect for his leaders, David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord blessed. A challenge for myself out of that last point was, how many generations will be blessed because of what I have done to serve the Lord, to follow the Lord's commandments? How many? Is it going to be just me? Is it going to be my son? Is it going to be his kids? Is having a heart like David even possible? I think it is. It's pretty simple. Have a relationship with the Lord, respect the Lord's leaders, and inquire of the Lord to lead and guide you. And am I willing to do what is necessary? And then how many generations are going to be blessed because of that? Thank you.